It's always nice to have little visitors go
He
away.
just came to visit, so it was.
Okay, let's return to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. Welcome back. It's good to have everyone who's in the room and out of the room.
I'm in the room now.
No, I was
Are you doing
wondering,
vacation?
and Keisha's here, Skylar's here, all of us are here. It's a beautiful day, it's Friday, and spring is springing. We have before us, in response to all the concerns that we have been hearing for the last weeks, we are ready to look at what I hope will be our final amendment on which is draft 3.1 to H470, our what was a miscellaneous liquor and lottery bill. And it is, we have taken people's concerns into advisement, and Tucker has done a wonderful job of incorporating people's concerns. And so I would ask Tucker to present the changes he has made to the bill.
Good morning, Tucker Anderson, City Council. You have in front of you draft 3.1 of the committee's amendment to H470. I will walk you through the changes to the underlying bill. This is presented as a strike all, so I have highlighted all of the new language, both from your last amendment and what is being proposed for this morning. So moving through section 1, those are some of the hard cider cleanup changes that were in the underlying bill. In section 2, these are conforming updates to the fees provisions in Title VII to accommodate both the increase in the number of fourth class licenses that can be acquired, and also to change the names of the festival permit and the educational sampling permit. Okay, section 3, this is the update to the fourth place last license statute. So this is the update in.
This is a new piece that we're adding to this bill. So this bill, as I will remind you, has gone from 4 pages now to 11.
Yes, so in this section, these are the updates to both separate out farmers market locations and the tasting rooms and retail locations that get fourth class licenses. And just for those retail shops and tasting rooms, there's an increase in the volume of beverages that may be served by the license holder. Subdivision 1, subdivision A, we're specifying that the existing limitations are going to be for farmers market locations.
The 2 ounce
Right.
limitation has a
2
sample.
ounce per serving of malt beverages, vinous beverages, or ready to drink spirits beverages with a total of 8 ounces. And I do know that there was a request to make sure that hard cider was included here, but for the edification of the committee and for those in the room and watching, hard cider in its definition in Title VII is a vinous beverage. So we only use the term hard cider where it's being treated differently from all the other vinous beverages. So that's why it doesn't get its own call out here. In subdivision B.
I'm gonna just ask, sorry to do this, but we have now also spirituous liquor, spirituous beverages, hardcore spirits are also at are also at farmers
But
market.
they
So
have been, Bar Hill's down there.
right.
You go on
So
to the next page.
next page. Thank you. Thank you.
So in that Romanet 2, existing limitation, 1/4 ounce per serving of spirits or fortified wines with a total of 1 ounce.
Thank you.
And that's
Could have kept reading.
existing now, but in
Yes.
other circumstances.
Correct.
Or,
It
Right.
exists now for farmers markets and for the retail
for
shops.
farmers markets too.
Yeah, we're talking about farmers markets right now.
This is the,
Right,
this is
but,
the existing universal limit for
Okay.
all fourth class licenses.
okay,
And now we'll move into subdivision B, which is going to cover the retail shops / tasting rooms. And they're going to be allowed to serve slightly more or more.
okay.
I won't qualify
Right,
the
right.
more.
Okay, thank you.
In subdivision B, at tasting rooms and retail shops, the limits will be an aggregate total of 16 ounces of malt beverages or hard cider. So there isn't the per serving limitation, it's just the aggregate limit of 16 ounces.
For a particular person, that's understood.
Yes. The opening states that a licensee may, for consumption, distribute the following amounts of alcoholic beverages to a retail customer. So this is per
That's
customer.
okay, great.
Okay,
For vinous beverages and ready to drink spirits beverages, it is 12 ounces. And finally, for spirits or fortified wines, this does have a serving limitation, which is 1/4 ounce with a total of 2 ounces.
and that is current, or is that
This
also,
is new. This
that's
is the-
increased?
Right, so under current law, it's 1/4 ounce for a total of 1 ounce. This is 1/4 ounce servings for a total of 2 ounces.
And this, as you'll recall, is what the manufacturers have requested, and the department has agreed to.
To allow some of the locations,
Right. Some of the
To serve-
manufacturing locations who are,
something closer to full bore, if they
Right.
want to do a full bore.
but not yet full board. Correct. Okay,
Subsection C, this is another substantive change here. This allows at a maximum of 2 fourth-class license locations for the manufacturer rectifier to sell alcoholic beverages manufactured by other manufacturers, and that is not more than 5 additional manufacturers. This is existing law. The change is to allow them to have 2 of these locations instead of 1.
Let's get off the dirt road on the paved highway.
or, yeah, or we're now making it,
In moving through section 4, this is another one of the hard cider cleanup provisions that was in the underlying bill. Section 5 on page 4, this takes us into
oh, this,
some,
yeah, this was in ready, yes, version. No,
this takes us into the first of the updated event permits. This is going to be the limited event permit. These are the not Brewfest festivals, right? The
cultural,
Are we
Not-
defining by what it's not?
not
the
primary
garlic
purpose of
festival.
let's
serving.
define it positively.
The
Let's
balloon
talk-
festival.
The
Let's talk
Or
about it
literary
as a
festival,
cultural,
yeah.
a cultural festival of some
I don't
kind.
know if garlic is cultural.
It is, it's,
It's.
they are
cultural.
cultured. Okay, so these are that's how we're understanding, limited events and special, and what's the other one now? Okay, you go.
We'll
and
get to the other one in a moment, tackle them one at a time so that we don't get them confused, because in drafting this, I mislabeled them probably
2 or 3 times, I'm sure.
many dozens of times, yes. In subdivision E1, the existing educational sampling permit structure is changed to state that a limited event permit holder may purchase invoiced volumes of alcoholic beverages directly from a manufacturer, packager, wholesale dealer, or importer licensed in Vermont, or a manufacturer or packager that holds federal permits such as the basic permit or the brewer's notice, or evidence of licensure in a foreign country that is satisfactory to the board. We discussed this when I walked through this last time. These are similar requirements to what exists in Title VII, with the exception that this calls out the actual types of federal licenses that are issued to these entities, rather than just stating that it's licensed by the federal government or an international entity. In subdivision B2, this language also exists elsewhere. It's moved up here that the invoiced volumes of alcoholic beverages may be transported into the site and sold by the glass to the public by the permit holder or the permit holder's employees and volunteers during the event. So the responsibility for the transporting to the site and the distribution of the alcohol is on the permit holder.
Yeah,
Okay.
any
Subsection C.
questions thus far?
Subsection C is really just condensed down so that this no longer has independent subdivisions and states that not more than 4 of these permits shall be issued annually to the same person. and that the permits are valid for not more than 4 consecutive days.
Okay,
So this is not the one where we're talking 40 instances.
That's the special events permits that are the last section of the substantive section of the bill. We'll touch on that.
this is Bookstock, this is the Garlic Festival, this is the,
Maybe not, maybe it's next.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Do fairs have, not fairs set up? Sorry, dumb
There
question.
were beer tents at the,
All right, we'll skip, sorry.
that's why it's 4 days. It's
Okay.
4 days. Sunbridge Fair.
Yeah,
4
yeah,
days.
yeah, okay.
Champlain Valley's.
but perhaps those are special events permits. that are-
Yeah.
Okay, so subsection D, the permit holder shall be subject to provisions of Title VII, including section 214. Educate, that's the licensee education, and the rules of the board regarding the sale of alcoholic beverages, and they have to pay the taxes that are established in section 421, which allowed us to eliminate all of the language that comes after that that spells out you have to pay your taxes on the alcohol that you are selling at the event. Now we just have a cross-reference.
Which is great.
Okay. So that's that event set aside. Special events.
Top
Senator,
of page 7.
correct. Section 6, amending 7 VSA, section 252. Senator Harrison already gave you the preview of this, which is that the special events permit under current law, you are allowed to get 10, and that can cover up to 4 days. The requested change here, in subdivision A2, allows a manufacturer or rectifier to acquire 1 special event permit per physical location, and that permit is valid for up to 40 days in a calendar year. So instead of having 10 for 4 days each, it's 1 for 40 days in the calendar year, which would allow them to break up the days that the permit is used so that they're not limited to 10 instances of the permit.
So just remind us, give us a good example of this. This is a manufacturer who wants to be at a farmer's market all season now.
No, because they would
Okay.
get their 4th class license for the farmer's market. Right, the license that we covered
Right.
right at the beginning.
Give us an example of this then.
This may very well be a manufacturer getting their tent at some other venue. So let's say an outdoor concert venue. They are going to set up for that event their tent. They're going to pull a permit. Under current law, they could do that 10 times for a maximum of 4 days per
Okay.
permit. And in this instance, if the event that they were going to have their tent at was going to be, let's say, a weekly event for the entire summer, 2 days each, they could use 20 weekends, let's say, instead of just only having 10.
Great. And I saw Jess Oski was you.
Give an actual.
Just introduce yourself.
Jessica Oski for the Vermont Brewers Association. We like a movie night on the green that happens every week, for 10 weeks in a row. You can use that, or if it's every night, every week at the range for 40 weeks. This would allow them to do something that is repeated in the same location multiple weeks of the year or multiple nights of the year.
Great, that's helpful. Yeah, Wendy.
So why don't we have the requirement that they have a local permit in this category?
I'm not certain whether there is in section 252 a subsection B or C that requires with approval of the local control.
I think it may
So maybe
already,
it's already
it
there.
already
It's
exists.
Just not in this
In-
language.
The commissioner sent, I got an email. Maybe it was Tucker, about local,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that was very helpful. Thank you. But that was
Yeah.
about just general local control.
right,
But I had thought that this,
every event that takes place on a public green or whatever has to get permission from, generally from the select board for that event. So I think there's permission already given and they have to describe, at least I know from our town, that they have to describe what's at the event, who's serving, what's happening,
Right,
and they have to get a permit to do that.
if the town has put that into place. I think some of the obligation is for the town to set up the restrictions, but
That I
But
think
in our
exists.
first, in the limited event permit, we said the limited event is also approved by the local commissioners. And this seems like something that should also be approved by the local commissioners.
So
It
you,
is,
I
I
think
think.
it is.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
there isn't anything expressly in section 252 for this permit that requires the approval of the local control commissioners, which means it falls to some of the overarching authority granted to municipalities, which would be, for example, the conditioning of the issuance of the permit on public nuisance or entertainment ordinances adopted by the municipality. Without getting too deep down the rabbit hole, there are all sorts of limitations that might be placed on
Yeah.
adoption of those ordinances, including some Supreme Court decisions which define what constitutes a public nuisance that can actually be regulated pursuant to that 2291 authority. There is authority in section 2291
Yeah, I see.
for municipalities to regulate drinking in public places, so open containers in public places. There's two powers there that municipalities have. Outside of that, there is a bit of dearth of local authority over the regulation of alcoholic beverages and alcoholic beverage.
But you have
permits.
to get a vendor's permit.
You might,
If you-
yes, which we also
Right.
discussed last time.
So let me just go to our enforcer in chief here, Skylar, who has his hand up. So Skylar.
Yes, it's a bit disparate, but under the definition section, 7 VSA subsection 2, a special events permit is explicitly called out. Last paragraph, last sentence of that subsection 37 within 2 says, an event open to the public that has been approved by the local control commissioners. So all special event permits pursuant to 7 VSA 237 are submitted to town clerks for approval before they're issued by the department.
Right, thank you.
Good, thank you, Skylar. Was that part of the memo you sent to us already?
I don't think so.
I sent out general provisions of all of the local control throughout.
Thank you, Tucker and Skylar, that was very helpful. I hope that's okay.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine. It just wasn't here.
Yeah, no, but there's
It's
lots
in-
that isn't here because
Right,
we're mostly
well-
doing changes as opposed to what's in
Totally
underlying.
understand, but that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
But it is,
You are.
and we don't need to go down the rabbit hole, but just identifying where the
No, no,
rabbit hole is.
This is great.
Just the local control isn't as clear and direct as you might think that it is. I just want to say that because the other ordinances can be kind of complicated to put together. And so small towns who do have local control boards because they have select boards, maybe that is.
Every town has a select board.
I'm ready to assume that. And I believe all the select boards can be local control boards. I'll assume that they are. Okay, good. So having something approved by the local control board is a much higher level of authority for the towns, or I shouldn't say higher, much more reliable level of authority than doing it by ordinance.
Great.
That's all, is that right? Generally? No?
I don't think so.
Fix
Look
it?
at that the municipal.
I mean, I don't want to assume that if that's not the case.
This is our municipal authority, so.
I
we
know,
will-
well, that's why.
If you are concerned about that, and the legal question we would have to broach, and I don't know if this is necessarily
This may not be the
best
moment.
time, with the most
Understand.
time to get into it, is whether the denial of a license at the local level would be based on state law and the forms and procedures adopted by the Department of Liquor and Lottery, or whether they would be based on some sort of municipal regulatory authority, which in this realm is, like I said, perhaps fairly limited.
Okay, okay.
I would assume.
So then I'm gonna keep asking.
Yeah.
And when we have specific things,
You,
is
we're
the local control.
we're
board
expecting,
part of it?
I mean, you are
Well, I
now
can
are
hopefully
the,
ask shorter questions, right? As I go
yeah,
along.
you are the local control Cerberus at the gates of any new. I know, we're clear on you. We're
I
clear.
don't
that-
need the title.
Okay, Cerberus, the three-headed dog.
Oh,
Yes.
great, okay.
Cerberus
That's
was
a
a
vision.
three-headed dog.
Yes.
I didn't know how it was
But-
pronounced. I
But
thought it was
he's going to be
Siberian.
the lute playing, is it Oberon?
Oberon, a different character altogether. And
It's
and
too early.
thousands of years apart. So,
I need to
let's keep,
sample something for I.
I just,
Anyways,
this conversation is making me think we all need temple. Okay, let's keep moving. If there are no more questions on section 6, are the brewers, as my understanding is that we'll hear from them in a second. Okay, we're still all okay and on the same page. Okay, section 7.
Section 7, these are the sampling event permits. This is taking the existing festival permit statute, changing the name of the permit that will be issued. And subsection B, currently, to acquire this permit, and I will say that this subsection was originally written so that it would be clear that the only entities that were required to get a festival permit would be the entities who were holding an event where the primary purpose was to serve alcohol. The intent of this subsection initially was to make sure that other types of festivals where the primary purpose was not selling
Right.
or serving alcoholic beverages would be excluded and would get some other type of permit. Subsection B, that primary purpose test is eliminated. And instead, it says that an event that is required to be permitted under this section is any event that has more than 5 sampling outlets and expected event attendance is greater than 50 patrons.
And so we're no longer explicitly calling out it has to have a primary purpose. It just is the number of manufacturers represented, or the number of sampling outlets,
Yes.
and the number of people expected.
And these are conjunctive elements. So
That's
it's
great.
both. that
This
you
is
have
simplifying.
5 sampling outlets and the expected attendance is greater than 50.
and is an outlet a tent?
It's not defined, but.
I mean, not just a tent, but would
It's
you
sampling-
consider
sampling
each
outlet.
tent?
A
Yes.
table inside a big
Yeah.
tent.
Yeah, and if you had 5 different sellers in one tent, it would be
Yeah.
5.
Or inside, it could be a winter, it doesn't need to be a summer.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Okay,
Winter
great,
farmers market,
okay. D,
but we don't have any veggies particularly to sell.
These are all
that's right.
cleanup, changing the name of the festival permit to the sampling permit.
Yeah, got it.
Until you get to the end of subdivision D to E, the top of page 9, where the drink measurement standard is changed from US standard drinks with an alcohol measurement to drink units. So this is now a total of 6 standard drink units as defined by the World Health Organization.
And are we moving all the Department of Liquor and Lottery regs to this new?
Does
Standard?
anyone know what it is?
Would you be kind enough to share with us what it is?
I
Or
do not.
Wendy, or whoever knows. what-
The standard drink units are 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine. This is serving size.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there's any other standards. Beer, wine, spirits is 1 ounce of spirits. Am I missing a alcoholic beverage category?
Skylar, you have come back on. Do you want to add anything here?
You could get very scientific with the definition, 8 grams of ethyl alcohol, but it's mostly important to understand as Tucker was covering by beverage alcohol category, by alcohol by volume. All of those factors play into what makes a standard drink. Most of us understand malt beer, that's 12 ounces of around 5% alcohol by volume. Vinous beverages, if it's a table wine, it's around 5% alcohol. I'm sorry, that's 5 ounces of around, and there's some variability in what the alcohol by volume would be. But as Tucker mentioned, it's also different for spirits. So instead of breaking all of those out, we are referencing a standard that can be referenced to understand what a particular drink unit would be for a type of beverage alcohol at a specific alcohol by volume.
So referencing the World Health Organization standard, which incorporates all of these things, instead of calling them up. Great, that's very useful. Thank you. That's good simplification.
just
Yeah,
add,
Brandon.
this is where I have a problem with this bill. I look at these standards, and for someone, and Skylar, you may be the best person to answer this based on your experience in enforcement. If you have an average sized person who drinks 6 malt beers that have a 7% alcohol content, how difficult would it be for you to carry them out of the bar?
Certainly, the situation which you describe, Senator, it's certainly possible that could equal heavy impairment. Let me be very clear. Our sellers and servers have a very, very complicated job. The hospitality industry is often looked at as a menial labor. It's actually very difficult to operate under Title VII and serve basically serve an intoxicating beverage to the point of and no further than beyond impairment. The beverage alcohol industry is very vibrant. You'll find beverage alcohol within standards as high as it can go to as low as it can go. So without getting super specific, we have to create, we were tasked with creating some public safety guidelines. It would be also, while it would be true in the scenario in which you described, Senator Brock, it would also be true that if it was a 3% session style, low alcohol volume beverage alcohol, that limit wouldn't be invoked or reached, and we may not see impairment. It's very difficult for us to fence impairment. So we do have to give a wide ability for expression of the different products in the marketplace while setting some guidelines for public safety. And I would just last comment, just remind everyone that none of this removes our regulatory requirements for limitations on overservice. So we did want to provide some left and right limits while undergirding this all with the responsibility of all of our sellers and servers to not overserve an intoxicating beverage.
Everything that I've looked at essentially says that if you have a person, and when you envision events like this, a sampling event, you envision an event that is probably somewhat limited in time. This is not something where a person is going to spend all evening at an event drinking relatively slowly over a long period of time. And everything that I've seen for what I envision an event possibly to encompass says that somebody, even of average size, and certainly somebody of smaller size, who drinks 6 beers or 6 glasses of wine is going to be too intoxicated to drive. And I wonder why we put a number like that in here in the first place when we all know the effect that that's going to be, whether that in fact gives people comfort that this is something that is appropriate. My sense is if we look at the responsibility of the server to determine whether or not someone is intoxicated, which is what we do with our first class licensees, we don't have language like this affecting them. And my suggestion is that section 2A be deleted, that section E be deleted. I think they are less than helpful. And that they create numbers in terms of what a licensee can do or permittee can do in terms of quantities they can expend, I think are inappropriate and not necessary. So if we're going to depend on judgment as to whether a person is intoxicated in the first place, as really the determinant.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I ask?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you saying that having these numbers in here might actually encourage like a false sense of security?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because if I'm sitting at a bar, one server knows how many drinks he served me. So there's the reasonable, if I've had 6 beers, you're probably going to have to carry me out. And I most certainly shouldn't get in my car. But if you're at a tasting event, you go here and then you can walk there and you can walk there. And until you are visibly impaired, I don't know if the guy around the corner has served me 6 ounces or 3, whatever the limit is. But I can get that limit until somebody says,
And the likelihood is you're going to be drinking faster at an event than you're going to be drinking if you go to a bar or other social place where it's quite possible that you may spend the evening.
So may I just ask you on section 2A, we have taken, so we have just looked at language that the World Health Organization, we've just looked at trying to standardize and
Yeah,
so we have a definition of what the standard serving size is. So one beer for a person would be the 12 ounces at a beer festival. So 2A takes it up to a beer and a quarter.
Well, it's a
So,
beer and a
no,
quarter. It depends
that's
on the
total
amount of
consumption.
alcohol in the beer. And we might have a 3% beer and we might have a 7% a beer, which is more than double that.
Okay,
So, you know, what I'm saying is, when you start applying this, unless you get very, very granular, it's meaningless.
okay. So I'd like to hear, I hear your concern. And I'd like to hear our enforcer response and the experience response from the most famous festivals that we have from Jeff. So Skylar, would you respond first to that concern and then Jess, if you'd be kind enough for the festivals, for the brew festivals?
I can give a little bit of context as to why serving limitations were placed under this festival, original festival language. Historically, festivals could have been licensed in a number of different ways. They could have been special events. They could have been a festival. And prior to Act 70, both of those licenses allowed for, they weren't really designed for a sampling event. They were by the glass service of beverage alcohol. So when we applied this to things like a brewfest type environment, what we would have would be licensees who would come to us to say, for a 6-hour festival, we're going to offer full pours. And essentially there were no limitations whatsoever placed upon in statute, any sort of sampling limitations. It was a brewfest type environment where, to Senator Brock's sentiment, that it's generally encouraged a quicker amount of consumption in a shorter amount of time. We saw public safety harm without any sort of limitations placed there. When it came to recommending limitations, just again to Senator Brock's sentiment, there's such variability within the beverage alcohol industry that we didn't look to get granular as possible, but set a very high end limit to say this is the actual maximum that could be served. And the last point that I will make is, it is our experience that more often than not, that maximum is almost never reached for a host of reasons. But there is utility for the department to say at an event like this, which does have particular public safety challenges, that there is a high end limit of the amount of alcohol that you could ever sell, regardless of the type of product and regardless of the ABV. There is a high end limit. So with that, I certainly can take any questions, but I could turn it over to Ms. Oskey as well.
Yeah, and Jess, why don't we hear from you first before we ask?
Jessica Dawson from the Brewers Association, and I would want confirmation from Skylar on this, but the Vermont Brewers Festival, which happens every summer, didn't happen for a couple of years, but it's happening again this summer.
Woohoo!
Waterfront, is a very highly regulated event. The vendors there and the organizers take their responsibility very seriously, because they don't want to get into the kind of trouble that you're anticipating, Senator Brock. And as far as I know, there have been no instances of there's been no violations of the terms of their permit and their service limits for any of their events. They've been operated within the confines of the law. The change here from 12 to 16 is really not driven by the Vermont Brewers Festival. We issue glasses and tickets that you can get your glasses refilled. This is for some events, some festivals also want to be able to get out a can. And as you know, cans come in different sizes, and the biggest cans that we have are 16 ounces. So the total amount of ounces allowed to be served isn't changing here. It's just allowing for a 16 ounce can or 16 ounce service size to be offered, but it doesn't change the total amount that they're allowed to serve.
Would a person average sized man, let's say 170 pounds, 160 pounds, who had 6 12-ounce servings of an average beer
Over
in the
6
space of 2 hours, would that person be intoxicated as far as driving under the influence?
Well, can I just clarify one thing with what you just said? Under this proposal on 2A and in the current law, it wouldn't allow 6 12-ounce, because it's a total of 60 ounces. So it would be 5 12-ounce.
Excuse me, you're correct, 5.
Yeah,
Mm.
and as you know, it depends on what the ABV of that
Mhm.
beer is, and I'm not a certified pourer, so, or a bartender, so I'm not skilled to answer that.
Skylar, could you perhaps shed your experience on that?
I will. Under the conditions in which you described, Senator Brock, impairment is highly probable, if not likely. You change any one of those variables, however, and you start to immediately impact the outcome. So whether that's a longer duration, whether that is a lower ABV alcohol, whether those are smaller serving sizes, all of those are factors in that equation.
Do we require food that be served with this much alcohol possibly being consumed?
There is no requirement at a special events permit that food be offered. However, not in statute. However, I will report to the committee that we did pass a regulation rewrite out of the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, and we are requiring. I'm sorry.
We saw that.
Okay.
I got the quite lengthy new rules that have been come out of administered rules.
One of those rule updates does say that anytime beverage alcohol is served to the public, food service must be available. Now, it doesn't have to be by the permit holder. It could be by partnership with some sort of other food vendor, food trucks, food delivery service. But the updated requirement does say that there needs to be food available for patrons at all licensed and permitted events.
Because that was, that's the piece of, I know that we have required it in the past. I think at manufacturers or, we've required it somewhere where we had, because food is certainly a key element to slowing down some of the ability to get intoxicated in
Correct.
that shorter period of time.
In order
that
for
we can
first class
require.
licensure to be issued, you do have to have a health license in order to serve food. And historically, that has been a health license in the name of the applicant. This regulation rewrite.
In tasting rooms too, Skylar, didn't we add that to tasting rooms as well? Because we had to deal with the kitchen. Remember, we had to do that a couple of years ago, adding, anyway, I know we've added that as a piece. So, and can we just clarify on cans? Everything at a brew fest or at one of these festivals is given. I mean, they buy the tickets, but they are then given, they don't have to buy the individual samples. Is that right?
Jessica Oski.
Yeah.
From Brewers Festival.
You're our expert here.
But that's just what it is.
It's different, there's not one way that they work.
Okay.
The Brewers Festival, the way it has traditionally worked is that you get a number of tickets and you get a glass. But it's not the same at all Brewers Fest, and it's not written into the law about how they operate.
You can't buy product at the Brewers Festival, can you?
At the Vermont Brewers Festival, you pay an entrance fee. It may be different at other events, I don't know, but the law does require that you pay an entrance fee.
But you can't buy a 6-pack on the way out.
I don't believe you can. No.
Thanks. Oh, Wendy, do you have
Yes,
a?
Skylar can describe the different types of events, right? And as Jessica was describing it, the Brewers Festival has the sample size in a cup, but events do it differently.
Okay.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Skylar, but I think that captures, they're all different.
Okay, Wendy.
Yeah, well, so just in terms of control, and maybe it's not here because we're not changing it, but isn't there control access into
Yes.
these? So what towns, in my experience, in other place, we were able to say, you need to have a law enforcement officer, for example, there, so that they can check when people leave. You know,
Which I-
not.
yeah.
But you don't have to. I mean, it.
No, you don't
it's
have to,
local
but that's another
determined.
reason why towns need authority, because towns can require that, I hope.
For this, for many of these festivals you're thinking of, they're going to be outside, right?
Right,
In the public space where there is some open container regulatory authority for municipalities. They have to adopt the ordinance first, but they do have some regulatory. authority.
right, but wouldn't there typically be some sort of perimeter, the
Yes.
road
Yeah.
Yes.
where
And
people get
actually,
in?
Yeah.
So that's,
You
that's how
Even
you
with the beer
control.
cans.
Skylar can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's actually part of the requirement. for
That's
getting-
good.
Good, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not here, but,
You described the
Not-
bounds of the
Yeah,
permit, of the
correct.
permitted space.
Right.
and you limit it in some physical way.
It's,
Yeah, all right, so
And
that's
And
a
the
way
towns
to.
do, you've gotta have a police officer, you've gotta have porta potties, you've gotta make up for all of the.
And again, it varies depending upon the municipality. There are those
Yes.
that don't have those things.
And I
They,
think,
it has to be an enclosed space, yes, from a permit standpoint. But none of these things about police officers are a requirement as far as what we're doing.
Well,
Those are dependent upon what the municipality,
On the
if
town.
anything,
right.
decides to do.
but every
Where
one
we've
of
had
them,
trouble is rock concerts generally,
Mhm.
where the towns have not had that kind of ordinance in place. And-
but there are requirements that every one of these people who are serving be educated about, that go through the DLL education system, right?
Absolutely, but I do want to say that at these events, the DLL law enforcement investigators are working the events.
Mhm.
So you're not, if a municipality doesn't have law enforcement at the event, we are having our own law enforcement at these events.
Yeah.
That's great.
But my point in all of this is the limits in here, I believe, are way, way too high. And what I'm saying is there is virtually no alcoholic product that is served that would allow a person to have this quantity of units of alcohol and not be impaired within a reasonable period of time based on how long we would expect them to be at such an event. That's my point.
That's your concern.
Mhm.
This has been existing law. The only thing we're changing here is taking it from 12 to 16. And it sounds like you're suggesting that we,
We're taking it from 12 to 16.
I'm suggesting one of two things, either one, we lower it, and there's a big argument about how you lower it, or two, you eliminate it because you don't apply the same standard to class one licensees.
so I think at this point in the game, to eliminate it would be a little more challenging. I think to keep it at 12, I hear what people are saying about cans, but I think that particularly with cans with higher alcohol content, I would be happy to, at this point in the game, consider us going back to the 12. Who changed it to 16? Did we change that to 16 in this committee or in the House? I think it was here.
Here,
Yeah, and at the DLL's recommendation,
it was the brewers, feedback we got from the brewers.
right, right.
And the cider makers who make 16-ounce cans.
Right, they also make 12-ounce cans.
Correct.
Well, the issue is not in the 16-ounce size of the can, the issue is the amount of alcohol
Correct.
that you're
So
authorizing. The
your
size of the can
concern is
doesn't
the
matter.
60 ounces.
They want to be
within
able
a
to
6
sell
ounce.
cans.
Well, the six drink
That's-
units.
That's
is your-
basically what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
yes.
They
And
want to sell it. but they don't.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't care whether they're 16-ounce cans or 3-ounce cans.
okay,
It's the
so,
total amount of alcohol.
so it's the 60 ounces you're referring to. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yes.
The six drink units.
Correct, that's,
Six
that's
drink
the
units,
recommended
that's correct.
unit.
Units is the issue.
6 drinks is so lot of drinks.
the 6 drink unit standard also, just to be clear, is in the catch-all subdivision.
Yes.
It covers events where there are multiple categories
Correct.
of beverage alcohol being served to the public.
So
And
it
the
is,
drink units equate to about 12 ounces of beer. It equates to about 5 ounces of wine, and it equates to about 1 ounce of spirits.
Right.
That's
That,
what we're talking about.
which is what we're talking about at the
And
top
what
of page.
I'm suggesting is that 6 for a festival permit, which typically is a limited period of time, is too high. And you do either one of two things, you either one, lower it to something that's reasonable that you can talk about, or two, you eliminate it and then leave the responsibility to the seller, who theoretically has been trained not to serve so much alcohol to a person that they're going to be impaired.
So I would defer to the department and on this one, and because I don't know how long the 60-ounce amount has been in law, and it sounds like they're pretty heavily overseen. So I'd really love to hear why we have such a high ounce.
I think to Senator Brock's request, the department, as you've heard from Skylar, we wouldn't be comfortable with you completely eliminating the aggregate limits. As Skylar's pointed out, that was problematic when there was no limits in place.
And would you have a recommendation in response to Senator Brock's concern? I mean, and actually, I think it's a concern people have.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
So
just
if you were
random.
interested in lowering the limit, Senator Brock, what would that limit be? Instead of 6 drink units as defined by the World Health
So
Organization.
would 40, would 4?
Well, what I might look at that, but one of the things I could do is, for California, for example, has a very effective chart. And I'd like the department perhaps to look at California's blood alcohol level chart that takes a look at people based on weight and based on consumption of alcohol. At what point would they hit a 0.08? The average person hit a 0.08 level in X number of time. It's very easy to use. And I think that could be the kind of guide that we might want to use.
But I
And
think
from
as you
that,
heard-
we could come up with a standard unit, perhaps.
But that's why we're referring people to the standard World Health Organization.
I don't think we're
Well,
gonna
yeah, but
reset
it's
the standard
the
unit.
quantity of the standard
Yeah.
world that we're
Yeah.
talking
But
about here.
it's not what a drink is, it's how many drinks we're
Correct.
allowing
To go back, yeah, exactly. So I think, yes, Skylar?
I will just make one point. If we want to rely on academic bodies that look at these things, and to Senator Brock's point, there is some places we could rely. The CDC gives a binge drinking definition of no more than 5 drinks. So if we are looking for a recommendation for an upper limit that is within the construct of already well studied data, I would recommend we look at the CDC, that number. And again, that's using the World Health Organization definition of a standard drink, no more than 5.
The 5, though, unit, as it's applied by, is based on the amount in a day, is it not? Not in the amount of 3 or 4
one
hours.
sitting.
Well, that's just the definition of a binge drinking. That would be correct. So that would be the upper limit there would be 5. Again, 5 invoking that World Health standard drink unit, no more than 5 standard drinks.
In a day.
And that would be 50.
Skylar's not about the end of day.
Or
I think I hear a recommendation from Senator Cummings about on this.
the equivalent of.
So we're talking about a limited time period. We're talking about anywhere from 2 to 6 hours of a fest, right? And I think rather than being, it's sort of hard to kind of come up with this on the fly without more data. So I as much as I want to move this out, it does strike me that it needs, we're making a good side, a big change here, and that it might bear a little bit more research and discussion before we land on something arbitrary.
Or certainly better than 6.
Right. So I'm happy to move forward with this if the parties are okay with moving to something like 40 ounces from 60. Tucker, what are you thinking?
If the suggestion is
Just waiting for us to make
for
up our
standard
minds.
drink
Yes.
units, right now, all of the beverage categories in this subdivision reflect 5. So Skylar and the department could probably make a recommendation for adjusting the volumes to 4 instead of 5 if that was the decision made.
And again, it's nothing that I think everybody's going to be entirely happy with. And I still have concerns about that as I look at 4 drinks within a 2-hour period, particularly of some of the higher alcohol percentage items that we have in the inventory.
Okay, so we have in statute 5 at the moment, all over the place. Commissioner?
Yeah, I was just trying to clarify that this exists already in statute. So the festival permit limit that you're talking about already exists. We're just
I know.
characterizing it as 6 drinks instead of the grams and ounces.
Right, no, we're clear on that. I think
So.
Randy's concern is the total volume that they are
Understood.
capable of
Senator
drinking.
Brock say 4 drinks, the department would be fine to say it's a 4-drink unit. That's fine. That's fine with us. Is it fine with brewers? I don't know. Like, this is existing language
Right.
that we're now changing at the time. when
I
we're
understand.
about- Yeah.
Which is my concern, and I don't want to land on something arbitrarily without input from the people who are most involved, which are the department.
So it's 4 or 5, it's fine with us. I don't know what works for the brewers.
Jessica Brodsky for the Brewers Association. I can't say without talking to them. I can just say that it hasn't been, most people do not consume that amount, and it has been working well. And I hear you about the 0.08, but not everybody is driving. And the servers are under the obligations that exist in law to not overserve. So, you're the deciders. Make the choice.
I think, given the hour of where we are right now, we can either choose to research this further and get Jess to check in with all her breweries. And have others weigh in, because it isn't just breweries, it's wineries, it is spirits, it's a bunch of the other industries. I think given where we are, and given this has to make a journey, it has the opportunity to look at this again in finance. I'd say, given your concerns, I would take this down to what is currently in statute to 5. And then as we progress, I think that's what we're talking, isn't 50 ounces what you've said, Skylar, is in
The CDC,
the CDC?
it's 5.
Tucker, is that what you're saying is in statute all over the place? It's 5?
So for the individual beverage categories, for example, malt beverages, 12 ounces per serving, maximum of 65 and 25 for wine. That's essentially 5 drinks in each one of these categories until you get to the catch-all category, which is 6.
So the 5 is a limit already in statute.
We're trying to make apples, kiwis, and oranges all the same, but
They are.
it's about, yes, what the standard drink would be for each one of those beverage alcohol
Yeah,
categories.
that's a conversion in section E.
Right.
But
So-
5 total is not inconsistent with this statute. Can we
Yes.
say that?
Yes.
So, but 5 drinks is
Not inconsistent.
it's not inconsistent, but 5 drinks is not 5 ounce, 50 ounces,
Well, it is,
Depends on
because
the
as you,
alcoholic beverage.
or
you're
up to
talking
50
about.
ounces.
Yeah.
It's okay. So
50 ounces would be 12 ounce, yeah. And that's in this conversion to the EU standard or the World Health Organization standard. We're talking over here 6, and that would be reduced to 5.
correct. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
And I think, given where we are at this point, that makes sense. And this will have a journey to finance where we can maybe get some more data on this. And I think at the moment, I would boldly propose that we move this to 5. And I don't know how many ounces that converts to. Does that 50 or
We're
does it?
eliminating the ounces.
Okay, and
right?
we'd eliminate the
Five
ounces.
Five
drinks
units.
is you're referring them to the World Health Organization that defines the serving size based on ABV, right? So wine has a serving size, so that's why we're shifting it from saying 50 ounces aggregate or 60 ounces aggregate, and we're saying the drink unit as defined by the World Health Organization.
I understand that, but it's still in the bill as 60 ounces.
That's
in
what the
two-
suggested change.
I know. So in 2A, what is the suggested change that, and instead say no more.
60
no.
ounces converts, if you take 5, which, or 12 ounces.
Right,
which
okay, so
they
leave-
struck,
sorry, I'm-
That's still, that comes to that.
Right,
That comes
okay,
to 5.
okay, great. So all we're doing is changing 6 to 5 at the top of page 9. Is that my understanding? Correct. Okay, good. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, section 8 at the bottom of page 9. This is continuing the hard cider cleanup. If you go through page 10, underlined text just adds the word hard. Section 9, also on page 10. This is the sunset of the pick up sale of
Ready to
alcoholic
go
beverages
drinks.
for off-premises consumption. The repeal, which is set for July 1st, 2023, is extended to 2025.
And I mentioned this, I'm not sure I fully mentioned, we have a report in here. The report isn't due until January 25. It makes no sense to eliminate the sunset before we actually have the report. So that is why we extended the sunset until 2025. And just to be consistent, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to, okay, great.
In section 10, the next change, this is in the report, instead of the Department of Health, the Department of Liquor and Lottery, in consultation with other stakeholders, is going to study and report on the public safety impacts of the sale of alcoholic beverages under the sale for off-premises consumption program instead of VSA 230.
Right.
Then there's a conforming change on page 11 in the effective dates, because we added sections here so that the sunset extension takes effect on passage, so that we don't have a potential conflict with a repeal and an unrepeal happening on the same day.
Thank you. Okay, so we have made one change, which means depending on how we move on this, that would be, do we need another thing, or can we keep it still under 3.1?
I have draft 3.2 ready for you, with 5 replacing 6 for the standard drinks. I also, while you all were discussing and analyzing, discovered that I inadvertently left a cider without its technical correction to hard cider on page 8, line 15. So I have made that change as well.
Okay, great. And so if you just hold this thought for 3.2, let's hear from Jess and Gwen and Wendy about how we feel about this now, because ideally we'd love to vote this out today. And Matt, you didn't ask to testify, so
No, thank you.
do you have anything you want to say?
No, thank you, Senator.
Okay, Jessica, where are you, my dear?
Ask you to the Vermont Brewers Association, this good with us.
Okay, good. Gwen?
When Zach of League of Citizens and Towns, we're fine with it, and we were only here to answer questions if anyone had any about the
Okay.
cost or farmers markets.
And I think we have answered our
My question
question.
was, are you fine with it? So good.
Right. And Commissioner, we'll give you the final word.
Commissioner of the Department of Liquor and Lottery, yes, we're fine with that change.
Okay, great. And more to follow. This bill, as we know, has a ways to go still. So what?
I'm only looking at fees.
Well, it is, I think in all
However, I
fairness,
can look at anything I want to.
yeah. No, I appreciate Senator Brock's concerns, and I appreciate the new municipal voice on this committee, not the new, I would say, new, more informed.
Three-headed dog,
voice
I got it.
That is, that we are now working on. I appreciate your concerns about this. I mean, I think we're managing it well on most of our festivals. I think, that continues to be one of our biggest challenges. So I think this is good, and I would look for a motion to move draft 3.2 vote out draft 3.2 of our strike all favorably.
Okay. Okay. And so we obviously don't need to have it in front of us, but we will have it in front of us.
And we know what the changes are, hard cider and 6
Okay.
to 5.
I just sent it to the committee and to Scott, so you should all
Got it.
have a clean
Go
copy.
print it
of
out.
3.2.
Okay.
and
Okay.
moments.
Scott will print it out.
Okay, great. So this is
Uh,
470,
This is
H
H
470.
470, draft 3.2 of the
3.2.
strike all, voted out favorably.
Great. So I will call the roll. Senator Brock,
Yes.
Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Cummings.
Yes.
Senator Harrison is a yes. Senator Ron Hinsdale.
I am just reading what Tucker sent. Where is the most recent change that was just
Three
discussed?
It's top of page 9. It is Randy's concern about the volume of alcohol that could be consumed at a festival at a
Okay.
now special sampling event has been moved from 6 to 5 standard drink units.
As defined by the.
And
Okay,
yeah, exactly, which are the definitions as we understand them. And Tucker had one more change on hard cider to include that, in a rare move, he had missed.
and
That's the word.
can I just ask, so we,
Yeah.
I think I missed the discussion of taking out the fluid ounces or the grams. Is that because it already is defined by the World Health Organization? Without,
Correct, that's my understanding from the commissioner. Commissioner's testimony and Skylar's was that this is defined by the world, by
okay,
the World Health Organization, thanks. And we went to 5 on, because it aligns with other pieces of statute and with the CDC.
great, okay. Apologies, I heard half of that. We were doing our first nail clipping over here, so I missed a couple.
Can't even
the
imagine
conversation.
how delicate that operation
Yes.
was.
But yes, I'm a yes. Are we still in the vote?
And we have,
Okay, great.
and we
Got it.
have, Keisha, we have support from most of the stakeholders represented in this room.
Right, and it can, when it goes to finance, 3 of us are there in case the brewers or somebody else raises some major concern we missed, it sounds like.
Yeah, and the brewers are here in the room. Jess
Okay.
is here.
Okay,
Okay, so I think,
So, Madam Vice Chair, we voted and it was favorable 500.
correct. Oh, well, did you vote?
She did.
Okay, great.
yes,
So we don't have a reporter yet.
I'm happy to re-
Congratulations.
Why,
Senator
thank you, dear.
Clarkson.
Thank you. I seem to be reporting this as well. Okay. I would love as much help on reporting this as possible, but I think this is fairly straightforward. And I really appreciate the work we have done together to move this forward. So thank you all. And I don't think we have Randy, we're now on the floor. We have Randy is doing the confirmation for Michael Harrington. I'm doing the confirmations for Wendy Knight and Lindsay Curley. So
great.
I think we're a wrap. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.